Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be checking out my 6-star rank 2 Wasp up against this Thor in a Labyrinth of Legends. Now as we know, Thor is not exactly the most straightforward opponent, especially because he basically forces you to throw your heavy attacks at him. Otherwise, once his timers expire, you will basically get stunned and comboed to death. However, just for the fun of it, I decided that Wasp would be perfect matchup for this Thor, and Wasp is actually quite decent option in Labyrinth as well. She would be much better option if there would be no 50k damage cap, just because of her level 3 attack, which continuously gains more and more bite to it based on your combo meter. But nonetheless, Wasp playstyle works perfectly for this Labyrinth fight, as we can see here, just because we are able to spam heavy attack after heavy attack to push him past bar power, then punish his level 1, and once again go into spamming our heavy attacks, because that is in fact how Wasp is kind of meant to be played, and the ability to basically never relying on parry and still being able to throw down our heavy attacks at basically any given opportunity whenever we find an opening pretty much makes sure that Wasp is perfect for this opponent. Also for any kind of opponent that has a limber active on them, because even in any quest, if you do have a longer fight and limber is a thing, Wasp basically bypasses simply by the fact that you do not have a need to land your parries, because you will always end up pushing opponent past battle power using your heavy attacks. Now there we saw a nice synergy that Wasp has with Nick Fury, Evade synergy, just because you do not only get to evade, you actually get to land a shock on your opponent, and that will save you. And that is also another reason why Wasp is a fairly safe option. In Labyrinth of Legends you have these 3 evade counters, and for vast majority of the fights they will work well enough. Now I did waste one of my evade counters at the beginning of the fight, which made me a bit more nervous. However, we still have one remaining, and we still have a lot of ground to cover though, but I will speed up the footage a bit later on to mid-section in the fight. Here I'm just showcasing that 69 hits in Labyrinth of Legends. We're throwing Wasp's level 3 attack, and it will already basically breach that 50k gap limit. It was 49k level 3 attack, so any consecutive level 3 basically is going to be capped at 50k, which I was really hoping for, that my assassins, which was at 2 at the point towards the end of the fight, could get past that limitation and we will be able to see some really impressive level 3. Unfortunately that did not happen. However, we can still see here that Wasp has an absolute dominant control over the fight. We do not have to rely on our parry. We consistently keep dropping our heavy attacks, therefore his timer problems that he can place on us are not really a problem here. And guaranteed crits on heavy attacks basically make sure that our damage output is still quite decent and definitely considerable. Now I have sped up the footage starting from here. Also definitely worth to mention that I don't have Havoc synergy here for Wasp, but Wasp does do a lot more damage if you have Havoc on your team, so that is definitely something to think about, and she might actually be quite a decent option for a lot of Labyrinth fights on some easier paths as well, definitely, because we can see that we don't have to rely on intercepts, we don't have to rely on parry, or we basically can ignore the limber as well. And only big problem for Wasp in Labyrinth is the fact that her level 3 is damage capped. Other than that, we have solid damage output. We are making a steady progress with Nick Fury and Quake synergy. We also have this protection, because typically it is quite hard to recover from opponents' evade if they evade mid-heavy attack. However, with this synergy I do feel a lot more safe in many more matchups. I had used Wasp in past as well in a couple of fights in Labyrinth of Legends, and I never really had much problem with that, and she always did solid job for me. So I just wanted to make a video to show that Wasp in fact can be a quite decent Labyrinth of Legends option, especially if you're struggling for champions that can do this content. Wasp is not too bad at all. Also, Wasp would have a really good Maestro matchup, just because Maestro can't shrug off the passive stun, so that would still work, and other than ability to shrug off all the debuffs against Iron Champions, Maestro doesn't really have much going on for him. You would not have to worry about your heal, like his regeneration or power flood or unstoppable, nothing like that. His ability against science champions is the fact that he can shrug off those debuffs like really quickly. However, with Wasp you could just heavy him in the corner, and yeah, he can't shrug off passive stun, so there's that, and you would be fighting that fight pretty much as normal without a care in the world. And yeah, here we can definitely see that the Thor is going down slowly but surely. 220, 230 hits in, we're pretty much reaching halfway point there. He's at 54%. So it is not the quickest fight. However, we do need to take in consideration this guy has 3.3 mil health. Quite few of Labyrinth opponents do have only 1.5 million health, and if that were the case, we would be pretty much done here. Like, if we would be fighting Red Hulk, I believe we are done in about 250, 270 hits, and that definitely is a solid damage output, especially for a champion that generically does not get considered as an option in Labyrinth of Legends at all whatsoever. So here we're going on for another level 3 hit with throwing that giant candy bar at Thor. Now unfortunately, as I keep mentioning, we have our damage capped, and that kind of sucks because at this point we would be hitting insanely hard with those level 3s. So she has somewhat kind of like a Star-Lord-esque quality with her level 3s. But yeah, that 50k damage limit definitely does interfere with that. We'll see if Abyss of Legends has a damage cap on it, or how Wasp can potentially maybe be a decent option for quite a few fights in Abyss. Just because the way Abyss timers are going to work is going to basically count how many hits you have landed on opponent, how many hits you have blocked. And Wasp never has to block, so she could potentially stretch quite far in Abyss as well. I definitely am quite eager to see how she will perform there. But yeah, for now we can see that we are definitely closing in on the last third of the fight there. He's at 33% here, and as ever our game plan is still super simple. Just spam our heavy attacks mainly. Now I do drop a couple of level 2s here and there just for fun, just to showcase that they in fact do a lot of damage. But obviously, because I'm running Suicide Masteries and I do not have any generic way to heal myself up, I can't really keep throwing my level 2s too much in this fight. Now I did get a bit lucky there. He could have tried to retaliate after that evade. He didn't. That means I can preserve my evade charge for later on in the fight, which definitely will come in handy. But once again, I wasted one of my evade charges at the beginning of the fight anyway, so this kind of like makes up for it, I suppose. But yeah, so we're closing in on 380, 390 hits. We're closing into Assassin's range, doing extremely well so far. The original fight length for this 3.3 million fight was just above 15 minutes, so it's not the worst. However, obviously I sped up the middle section of this fight, and so the video isn't going to be as long. So 400 hits in, he's at final 20%, which we're going to take a look at our regular speed, because we're going to notice our damage output increase as well, obviously because of Assassin's Mastery, which is quite perfect for us at the point. And now every time I threw level 3 attack, and that's why I also kind of like saved my level 3 for a bit, just to make sure he's at 18% health. I was hoping Assassin's can bypass it. I was hoping I'm going to see actual Wasp damage output, which I actually might consider making like another video. I might take her in against the Star-Lord in hopes of bypassing that damage cap towards the end of the fight, just to see how strong her level 3 would in fact be at this point in the fight, because it would have to be quite impressive. But yeah, so last final 15% of the Thor, and we are piling on. As we can see, we have no problems dropping our heavy attacks. Also, I noticed a while ago people were complaining that Wasp's stun ability is not working correctly, and I did try my best to replicate it and make a video if it was in fact a bug and Wasp is bugged. However, I couldn't find a problem with it, so I don't know what was up with that. But yeah, I never really had a problem triggering Wasp stun when you chain heavy to your combos, so did not end up doing that video obviously because I could not showcase the problem in itself. At least there was no problem when it came to me specifically. So once again, 50k level 3, unfortunately just 50k level 3 there, and a last few percent on this God of Thunder. But do let me know, what do you guys think about Wasp? Perhaps this video has changed your mind. There's also quite an extensive Wasp review video. Just when I acquired her as a 6-star, available on my channel. If you do wish to kind of like look further into the character and what kind of awesome things she can do, definitely do feel free to check that one out. I am quite happy with the way it turned out, and I think it demonstrates the upsides of using Wasp quite considerably. But yeah, so here we can see that the Thor is going down slowly but surely. Last few percent left, 480 hits in the fight, so that's not the quickest fight, but it's definitely not also the longest fight when you consider that this is a 3.3 mil opponent, as I mentioned before. And the fight should be nearing its final here. I'm hoping for another like last big level 3. It wasn't meant to happen, however. So just like that, we are pretty much approaching here the end of the fight. Yeah, this I believe is the last level 3 that I am throwing at this God of Thunder, still original God of Thunder in our game at least. But yeah guys, so do once again let me know if you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit all the buttons, and it will definitely be a pleasure to catch you guys back on my channel soon enough with another interesting video. Do let me know which champions you would like to have showcased a bit more, and meanwhile I think I will in fact go and try and see how big of a level 3 I can throw in Labyrinth with Wasp. But yeah guys, that will do for today, and see ya!